preach. Repent. Repent and trust in the good news. And so we're going to substitute that word, that word English word belief for trust, because that's what the word actually means. The reign of Yahuwah draws near. It was a mighty declaration that the kingdom was being revealed in him. And he declared that it drew near. Follow me. He says to two of the brothers, letting them know that he would make them fishers of men. This is not the belief of the world standards. No, this is what the Hebrew says, amen. It is secure. It is to trust. It is to cling to something. Amen in the Hebrew means to grab a hold of something, like to not let it go. To grab a hold. He was saying to grab a hold of him. He was assurance. He was trust. He was stability. Right? He was life. Take off your life and put your whole existence, your whole everything upon the shepherd, and let him lead you and guide you to all truth. Everything, which was the command to love Yahuwah with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, with all your strength, everything. This is that aman. This is that trust. So Philip finds Nathanael and said to him, we have found him who Moshe in the Torah and the prophets, Yahushua of Nazareth. And Nathan said to him, it is possible that any good thing could come out of Nazareth? And Philip said, come and see. So they had knew according to what Moshe wrote about. And that's very interesting to know, because we need to know that it was not just, he just popped up. People anticipated him. And the very ones that he was picking knew that this was the one that was spoken about. And Nathanael meets the rabbi and he says, Rabbi, you are the bond of the Lord. You are the Solomon of Yisrael. But there were much greater things that Yahushua was going to share to test their trust. The beginning of the good news, Yahushua Messiah, the bond of Eluah, is how Mark starts it off. And you'll hear that phrase a lot. And what you will see is that confession of his identity, that good confession of a mind, that trust, is challenged over and over. From the onset, Yahushua establishes that a mind, that clinging to type trust, is essential. If any man were going to come after him, he would have to deny himself and take up his stake and follow him, he said. He who trusts in him is not judged, but he who does not trust is judged already. He has not trusted in the name of the only brought forth bond of Eluah. Name in Hebrew means Shem or Sham, as we talked about. It means the character or the nature of the Ruach, or the spirit of a being. He was asking people to trust who he was, who he is, to trust in his Ruach that was given to him by the Father. So follow me was a threat not only to Rome, but it was a threat to spiritual oppression. And most of all, it was a threat to sin, Satan's only weapon. So then it begins. At the wedding, Yahushua turns water into wine. It's the first of many signs to come. His mother says they have no wine. Yahushua answers a very peculiar answer. He says, woman, what does that have to do with me? And you. And then he says, my hour has not yet come. This statement would foreshadow his last breath when he would drink wine. He would swallow up sin. And the sting, which is death, he would overcome. It will be accomplished in him. This is the beginning of signs that he began to manifest to show that he was sent by Abba Yahuwah. And a major opponent to the good news was Mammon. The love of money, wealth of the Sadducees, the merchants, the aristocrat, Israelites, the elite priests, the money changers, they made wealth attractive. They made wealth make people believe that they could escape from their problems and they could change the rules. But the Sadducees, who were gaining the world, they were also losing their soul. And Mammon was not worth it. Some thought if they could just, by their good deeds, they would get a Baruch. They would be able to escape poverty and the oppression, the oppression of the wage slavery, the oppression of the empire. But Yahushua said, no one is able to serve two masters. Either he hate one and love the other, or else he cleave to one and despise the other. And he broke it down what we just talked about cleaving to. You are not able to serve Eluah and Mammon. And having made whip of cords, he drove them out of the set apart place with sheep and oxen and poured out the money changers of corn and overturned the tables. And he said they have made the house of his father into a house of merchants. Yahushua let the Yahudim know that he would in fact destroy the dwelling place. And in 3 days he would raise it up. But he was speaking of himself. But it went over their heads. Herod's temple had become a place, a symbol of pride. Their position, their heritage, it had become pride. A line was drawn in the sand that unjust gain would not save you. You can only have one allegiance. Many believed in his name when they saw the signs which he was doing. But he knew what was in man. He knew what was in man because he witnessed it. After revealing himself in Samaria or Shemaron to a woman by the well, which we're going to talk about later in depth more, many in Shemaron or Samaria of that city trusted him because of the word which this woman had witnessed. Then Yahushua heals a man on the Sabbath. Now the Yahudim, adhering to their oral Torah, said that no one could be healed on the Sabbath. Contrary to the actual Torah, which promoted good to be done on any day, this was a religious slavery that was going on. But the deeper thing is, he wanted to save the people from their own thoughts, their own ideas, their own concepts, their own reasoning, their own self-righteousness. He wasn't going against what he had already spoken because that would make him a liar. And he didn't come to destroy the Torah because he was the Torah. He was the instruction. He was the mediator and the strength of the covenant. He was coming to expound upon what had been spoken, that it may bring people into the wholeness of his spirit. But the Yahudim started persecuting Yahushua, and they were seeking to kill him because he was doing these things and healings on the Sabbath. The power of the Father was working in him, and he was sent from him. Yahushua answered them, my Father works until now, and I work. Yahushua immediately was met with opposition concerning his identity. Because of this, the Yahudim were seeking all the more to kill him because not only was he breaking the Sabbath, he also called Eluah his own father, making himself equal to you. Yahushua immediately lets them know he can do nothing of himself, but only what he sees the Father doing. A statement that cuts to the heart. He wasn't there to showboat, but to display the one whom he learned from in heaven before the earth was, the one he got his life and power from. His Eluah and mighty power is the one he trusted in, the one he cleaved to. For the Father loves his bond and shows him all that he himself is doing. And greater works than these he's going to show him in order that you marvel. Indicating that the bond continues to be elevated in the closeness with his Father, even though he is the creator. How infinite is Yahuwah? But they couldn't see that Yahuwah was before their face. The Father has highly exalted his begotten, so much so that he tells him that all should value the bond, even as they value the Father. He who does not value the bond does not value the Father who sent him. This was the visible image of the invisible Eluah, revealing his begottenness, his birth in heaven. He said, for the Father possesses life in himself, so he gave also to the bond to possess life in himself, and gave all judgment into the bond. On top of this, he explains that the Father bears witness of him And even though Yahuchanan bear witness of him, he doesn't receive witness from man, because the Father said in heaven, "You are my beloved bond, in whom I am well pleased." On top of that, the works he was doing bear witness of the Father that he sent him. They didn't have the word in them. They were searching the scriptures thinking that everlasting life in them, but those very scriptures were bearing witness of the one that Moshe had talked about, and let them know that they set their hopes on Moshe, who would be their accuser, because Moshe wrote about him. It is a sharp discourse from the bond of Yahushua, HaMashiach, the Messiah. The crowds began to flock. Who is this man, speaking with so much authority against the elite with no fear, saying that the very Father in heaven is his Father? But Yahushua knew what was in man. And after feeding the thousands, he said, "Truly, truly, I say to you, you seek me, not because you saw the signs, but because you ate the loaves and were satisfied." If you didn't know, the Yahudim in the world had grown accustomed to monotonous labor, robbing people, and also not trusting in the word. Not only that, the only solution when it came to spirituality was to trust in oneself, trust in one's own works. And he said to them, he said, "Do not labor for the food that is perishing, but for the food that remains for everlasting life, which the bond of Adam shall give you. For the Father Eluah has set a seal on him." But they couldn't see that trusting and clinging to him was enough. So they said to him, "What should we do to work the works of Eluah?" Yahushua answered and said to them, "This is the work of Eluah, that you trust in him whom he sent." The sign they were looking for was the word that was before them. And everyone who saw him and trusted and clinged to him would possess everlasting life. And he said, "I shall raise him up on the last day." As the chatter began to grow more and more concerning his identity, there were various rumors about Yahushua's birth, believing he was born of fornication, as many didn't believe that his mother was found with child with no male seed. They said to him, "Is this Yahushua?" As if they knew him, "The son of Joseph, whom father and mother we know? How then does he says, 'I come down from heaven'?" Right? And this is classic, because you can see the so-called black men, so-called Negroes, and the questions in the community about who is this person claiming that Yahuwah is his very father. Oh, what you also have to remember is when he said that the Father was his Ab, it wasn't just that, okay, yeah, the Father is my spiritual father. You know, he was saying that he is the offspring of the Father. That's what was so offensive to them. It wasn't just like, okay, you know, oh yeah, Abraham is our father, you know, Eluah, Elohim is my father, you know, as in a spiritual sense. It was, he is saying, like, he came from him out of his very being. They didn't understand that no one has seen the Father except him who was literally from him, from his very being. And he even told them that he lived because of the Father. He knew who he was from and who sent him. For without the Father, he wouldn't exist. He was revealing himself to man, and all those who the Father was drawing to him saw him. The Pharisees boiled. They boiled inside. They couldn't take it. As many from the crowds trusted him, they sent officers to seize him, but no one laid a hand on him. The crowds were divided. This is a prophet. No. This is the Messiah. Does the Messiah come out of Galilee? Everyone was divided over his identity. Who is this man from Galilee who says the Father in heaven is his Father? Never has any man spoken like this. They shouted. The fear gripped the Pharisees. They were losing the grip on the masses. The elite were losing their grips. The Israelite or so-called Negro black elite were fearing losing their favor with Rome, who made them rich. Has any one of the rulers or the Pharisees trusted him? They asked. Puffed up in their pride, the crowd saw the Torah, but they didn't. And some of the crowds didn't even see it. And they pronounced a curse on them. They said that cursed are these people for not knowing the Torah. Now, when it comes to the taught ones or the disciples or the Talmud, they began to have their experience with the Creator. One night while on the boat, Yahushua was walking on the sea. Troubled, they thought it was a ghost, and immediately Yahushua says, take courage. It is I. Do not be afraid. Kepha bids him to come on the water, and the master complies. And when Kepha saw the strong wind, he was afraid. He begins to sink, and he cries out, saying, Master, save me. This right here would shadow Kepha's future denial. It only takes 1 second to take your eyes off the master, and you will sink. To take your eyes off the word of you. Yahushua grabs his hand and says, oh, ye of little trust. Because remember, trust means clinging to. Why did you doubt? Why did you doubt who I was? Witnessing this, the taught ones in the boat came and bowed to him and said, truly, you are the bond of the Lord. There are many thoughts, ideas, and conclusions when it comes to Yahushua. But there had not been a man like this, known in history to speak like this and move like this and to do the miracles that he was doing. Yahushua would ask them a question. One of the 2 questions that the biggest question of the age. He said, who do men say the bond of Adam is? Some say Yehukanah, Mercer. Others, Eliyahu or Yeriyahu or one of the prophets. Yahushua went quite some 30 years after his birth, caused a stir in the land. You also have to remember that the religious system of the Yahudim made themselves to be a Lord, just like the lion in the garden. Yahushua said that they didn't know the Father, that their father was indeed the devil. These modalistic, golden calf devil worshippers, passing off as monotheists, they didn't believe that Yahuwah could be in a body. They didn't believe the bond of Yahuwah, the begotten, the offspring, could stand before them.
Thoughts? Mark